Adam Rosen, world traveler. Are you a man without a home? Well, whatever, man. All the way from Hawaii at this moment. Founder of the email outreach company. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
Doing great, man. I appreciate you having me on, Wes. I'm excited to be here.
So, what's the deal, man? You can't stand still. Why are you traveling the world? And why'd you do it during COVID? What the heck, man? Are you crazy?
Yeah, I in my previous life, I was the complete opposite. So like I really don't like the term digital nomad, but my previous life when I started my first tech company coming out of college, I was the opposite. I thought the only way to build a successful company is you got to live in the office, and that's what I did. Literally, I'm not saying this for any pat in the back because I actually don't think it's necessarily even a good thing. But I was a Monday, Sunday type of guy, Monday through Saturdays, oftentimes 6 a.m. in the office till 7, 8 p.m. at night. I love when people say PM at night. Kind of goes hand in hand. But to 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Sundays, I take a little bit of a break, more of like a 9 to 6 day. So this traveling digital nomad lifestyle was the complete opposite of who I was. But at this point, I've been living out of my suitcase for about 2.5 years, and at least right now, no plan to stop.
Nice. So, we'll get into your history here in a little bit. We got some newsletters, got some engaged readers, but is there there's something going on with cold email? Because it seems like I am running across that a lot in the last 6 months to a year. It seems to be, is it new? I mean, I know it's not new, right? People have always done it, but there's some kind of pivot, something that's happened in the market that it seems to be in vogue much more than I've ever seen it.
Talk a lot now about the old days of cold email. And I'm not talking about the old days, in 2012 or 2018. I'm talking about the old days in the middle of 2023 when I talk about cold email, because like you said, Wes, really in the last 9 months, especially, the cold email world got flipped on its head. Part of it was AI. AI was kind of the first thing to start changing the cold email world. But the biggest shakeup happened in September that we saw. And that's when Google Domains was acquired by Squarespace. For example, like overnight, our bounce rate, because for our company, we do cold email outreach for companies where we're sending over 1 million emails a month. And in September, our bounce rate overnight when that acquisition happened went from about 2% to about 50%. And that forced us to change everything of what we did with cold email to now, as we're recording this in early March, it's a completely different world from what it was, again, even in August of 2023. So those are two reasons. A third reason is some great tools out there, one of which we love is Instantly. Instantly is a great cold email tool. But because of how good it is and how easy it is and how cheap it is to get lists and to execute cold email campaigns, it's made it so that it's, again, another startup word I don't like is democratized, but it's democratized the market so much where it's made it so easy for people to join, which has forced places, like Google or Yahoo to put up more restrictions to make it so that if you don't do A through Z correctly, you ain't going to go in the inbox anymore. You're going to be landing right in spam.
So let's walk through this. Why did the Squarespace acquisition of Google Domains change anything?
I've seen some acquisitions before, and acquisitions are tough on a small scale. Acquisitions are really tough on a big scale just because there's so much at risk. And Google Domains was bought by Squarespace. There are certain things that you need to do. Think of it like a registration sticker in your car. Things like a DKM, an SPF, a DMARC, all these back end settings to set up your domain properly to basically register you as a legitimate sender. When the acquisition happened, many of those settings got removed. So when they get removed, there's a higher likelihood you end up in spam. So that was the biggest reason. Now things are okay. You work with Squarespace and you can create your domains through there and it's fine. But because of that, the poor acquisition, a lot of those key registration stickers got removed, which made it so that companies like mine and really anybody who had a domain through there was no longer verified. And then when you tried to contact support to fix it for you, they were like, look, we're inundated. We'll get to this if and when we have a chance, but it's not going to be fixed anytime soon.
Okay. So if bounce rates are going up like that, why do people do more cold email? Like, there's a disconnect there I'm not following.
Well, that was the case. But of course, like for us, there's things you could do to change it, to stop it. So at that point, we just removed all of our domains through there. We created new domains. We created new systems to use. We warmed those up properly. So that's not the case anymore. But it's more difficult to land in the inbox. So for example, in the old days, again, think 2023 for us, when we would work with a client, we would create one new domain that we would cold email from, because nobody, I don't care who's listening to this, if you're cold emailing, do not do it from your primary domain. So we would create a new domain and we would create two emails. One email would be our primary email we would send to. A second email was just a backup in case the first one got spammy. Now, when we work with a customer, we're creating 5 or more domains. We're creating 40 to 100 emails that we're sending from. We're sending 10 emails a day up to 60 emails a day per inbox. We're doing something called spin tags. So we used to write one good piece of copy and we would run with that as long as it got good results. Now, again, these spam tech filters are getting so good, they'll detect when you're sending mass emails. So we built this GPT through ChatGPT that'll recreate our best emails, but it'll do it in what's called spin tags. So basically, one email we send will get rewritten in 1,000 different variations. So, it'll say hi Wes or hello Wes, and then small changes like that throughout the email. So again, we're hopefully trying to stay ahead of Googles and Yahoos of the world so that we end up in the inbox. So you just have to take every measure possible. If you do it, cold email still works, but you just can't be an amateur anymore in the cold email world.
Yeah. What do you say to people that say, all right, cold email, you basically mean spam. So you're a spammer. You want me to spam?
Yeah, look, people have cold email gets a lot of that bad reputation, right? It's kind of like the ugly stepchild, from the movies back in the day, right? Like people sometimes will have a bad um, it'll have a bad reputation in some ways, and a lot of it is rightfully so. Like we all are sick and tired of getting bad spam emails in our inbox. It sucks. But you know what? We all hate getting bad Instagram ads. We all hate getting bad ads on Google. We all hate bad billboards. Like marketing can be great if it's relevant and promoted well, but marketing can also suck if it's irrelevant, if it's poor quality, and if it's coming across as spammy. So yes, cold email can be spammy and can be ugly, but if you do it well, it can work and it should work for anybody listening to this.
Fair enough. Yeah, I see Instantly.ai. I see Apollo. A lot of these things are coming up. I just saw, oh man, a couple of them. I'm seeing Campaigner, I see Limlist, I see Upticks. I mean, how does somebody pick which one?
A lot of them are going to be the same type of quality, so I wouldn't stress out too much about it. Some people will choose it based on cost. The one that we like is Instantly. It's low cost, it works well, it's easy to use. They're a great company, their support is really good. So that's the company we like, but Apollo does a really good job. Just Instantly is built more for cold email. Apollo is a little less for cold email, and those are really like the two top dogs in that space.
So what's Apollo built more for?
A little more for warmer emails versus
Oh, gotcha.
Instantly is more for like, hey, you're buying lists through them and you're sending emails through them. It's built a little bit more to cater to cold emailers.
Um, so, I mean, are people gaming the system? Because, I mean, I agree with you. There's an old adage, an old ad guy I know, says that, people don't read ads. They read what interests them. And sometimes it's an ad. Right? I think that was Ogilvy. So I get it. But if I have to buy multiple domains, saleswhisperer.biz, thesaleswhisperer.io, and then spin email addresses off of that, support at, JWS at, and then literally spin them to get the message through. I mean, is that just the game today? Is it not any different than retargeting?
Yeah, I mean, it's not any different. Again, any type of marketing medium. Like for me, I'm not great with social media in terms of like Instagram ads. If you want to do well on Instagram, you have to understand the system. You have to understand, to use your word, Wes, you have to understand the game to do it well. If you want to do a Facebook ad, if you want to do TikTok, if you want to do a billboard, like there's a game to any marketing medium. It's about figuring out the game. What I've always liked about email is that it's one of the most low cost and direct ways to get in front of your audience. So the costs are not high. It's more proactive versus like a Google ad. You're kind of putting it out there and then you're waiting for people to come. And it's also very targeted. So for anyone who's a B2B, who's selling into B2B, which I know a lot of your listeners are, what I love about it is you could reach out to the VP of HR at companies with 1,000 or more employees and send an email just to those people versus putting it on Instagram. And yes, you could target, but it still is going to go to a lot of times a random mix of people, some high quality, some low quality. And as long as you're not pulling a bait and switch, telling people you want to talk about one thing and then selling them another thing on the call, when you do have these meetings, they should be a higher quality lead than some of these other marketing meetings, because I've done them. Like I've done real estate developments in the past. I would do a lot of Facebook ads and I would get a lot of leads. Most of them were not worth me spending any time on. Versus the leads I get on through cold outreach. Not every one of them is great, of course. That's never going to be the case in marketing, but people know what they're getting on the call with you about. So and you know exactly what their title is. You know why you reached out to them. Well, as long as you do it right, you should have higher quality leads from it.
Well, I've seen, really, especially since COVID, people are hard to reach on the phone, even with direct mail. More people are working from home. Executives, it's hard to get their address. I've seen different companies, things like Sendoso, using various forms of email outreach to get them to verify who they are, confirm their address. Hey, I want to send you something. I know I'll have a voicemail. It may take me a week to check a voicemail. I hate getting voicemail, and I get a ton. Most of the calls I get are spam calls. But I am still checking email, and even I hate checking email too, but I do it. So are you finding like that's the case? Like executives, like high power C-suite people, are still checking their emails and responding to a good offer?
Yeah, in my previous startup, we had companies like Bank of America. We got them as a client, Amazon, Apple, Goldman Sachs, all through cold email. And one of the ones I like to talk about is MasterCard. We got MasterCard as a client, to go to your point, Wes, from cold emailing. Now their former CEO, Ajay Banga, he's the current president of the World Bank. And from a cold email, he got on multiple phone calls with us, ended up passing us to a CHRO, and they ended up buying. We've gotten multiple calls with billionaires from cold email outreach.
What were you selling?
So that email is something called what we call an advice email. So it's like, hey, we're young tech founders. This is what we're building. Would you be open to, a 10, 15-minute call to give me advice on this? Got on calls. Obviously he felt it was worth his time, liked us and liked what we were doing. Again, 3 phone calls with Ajay Banga, probably only 15 to 30-minute calls. But I mean, shoot, think about how valuable his time is. And then he found it valuable enough to say, hey, talk to my CHRO. They ended up, again, becoming one of our customers. So cold email, again, what I like about it, what first opened my eyes into cold email was in college, I ran this entrepreneur program. I started and ran an entrepreneur program at my school. And I wanted Mark Cuban to speak. And I remember cold emailing him, and it was a terrible email looking back on it today. And he responded and said, no. He said, no, thanks. And that was it. But I was like, shit. I don't know if I could curse in your podcast, but I was like, shit. Mark Cuban just emailed me back. Like, how cool is that? And that's when I started to see, wow, email can get me to literally
How do you know it
anybody.
was him and not an assistant?
I guess I don't know it was him. You're right. I can't be certain about that. But I just felt like Mark Cuban would probably respond with no.thx. Like, I don't know if I feel like an assistant probably would have been a little more thoughtful in it. But you're right. I have no idea. It could have been Mark Cuban's assistant that just pretended to be him. But the fact that we've gone on multiple calls with again, big time CEOs, like they're not always picking up their calls. I know for me, I have spam blockers on my phone. So like if it comes from spam, it's probably not even getting through to me. Versus email, I do read it. And if I'm interested, I'm going to take the call. If I'm not interested, I'm just going to tell the people, hey, stop reaching out. But again, like with anything, it's about quality. If you do things quality, you have a chance. If you do things at low quality, you're going to piss people off. And we try to stay away from pissing people off.
Yeah. So did you just stumble across cold email at the right time? You used it and then saw the value, pivoted to offering it?
Yeah, it was. Look, I never thought I'd run a cold email agency. That's probably the last thing I ever wanted to do or thought I would do. It was just, I had a tech startup previously. It was with the same co-founder of this company as I started email outreach company with. And we sold the company in 2019 and we did a million things wrong as a startup. But the one thing we always did a great job of was getting new business. I mentioned some of the big brands we got as customers. We always grew a lot and we didn't grow from any other medium really other than cold email. So when I sold the company, I started to do a lot of work with startups and as anyone listening to this podcast, obviously into sales knows, top of the funnel is everything. And there's a million ways to get more top of the funnel. Cold email just being one of those ways. And one of the startups I was advising just said, "Hey, Adam, my head of sales is struggling to get meetings on the books. Can you help?" I talked to her. I saw there was a big gap with their emailing. I picked up the phone, called my co-founder. I said, "Hey, man, I think we can help these guys out." And we beta tested it with them and a few other startups. Went well. Then 9 months after that, after we built out the systems, really proved this thing out, we started to add new customers. And now we're 2.5 years in. We've had, at this point, over 60 full service customers. We have a mastermind where we train people how to do this. And we're starting to grow into a lot of other mediums now, whether it's LinkedIn outreach, doing a lot with newsletters, and some other ways to just try to complement the outreach with the whole goal of getting our customers on as many high quality calls as possible.
Yeah. Is there a sweet spot for cold email, B2B? Like I'm wrapping up my inner circle. I want entrepreneurs, W-2 salespeople, micro business owners, 5 to 10 people to join the inner circle. Would cold email work in that regard?
What I love about, like, for B2B when it comes to cold email is cold email starts with a list. And like what you just described there, Wes, is you could get a list for that, where you could target business owners, 5 to 10 employees. You could target the founder or the CEO. You could target types of companies. So that's what I like about cold email when it comes to B2B is B2B tends to be just, you can get higher quality lists. But we've seen it work well, like real estate. We do a lot with real estate. We have some really amazing real estate brands that we work with where they're more direct to consumer. But because their average deal size are kind of similar to B2B, and there's ways you can leverage cold email for real estate in a way you would with a traditional B2B type of company. But like for what you described, Wes, cold email would be a great thing for you.
Very cool. So you sold your business in 2019, and what you're doing now, is it with the same co-founder?
Same co-founder as that previous company, yes.
Okay. And how old is your current company, EOC Works?
We started it in middle of 2021. So it's been about 2.5 years now.
Oh, okay, cool. And is he doing all the hard work while you gallivant around the world, man? Are you pulling your weight?
I just kind of relaxed on the beach with a mimosa every day, and get my nice sleep on the beach and relax and try to build up on my tan as much as I can.
All right, so you need to sell that course. That's the course I'll buy. I want to know how to do that.
Yeah, no, I always joke. I say when I tell people, at the time I was probably, I don't know, 27 years old when I sold my first company, but I always tell people, because I feel like the startup world is so over glamorized. I had an exit, but it was not the exit. I did move to Hawaii when I sold the company in 2019, but I did not move to Hawaii as a retired 27-year-old living on the beach and relaxing. So that was definitely not my acquisition exit. So my co-founder and I both, actually, we do travel full time. We're both, that word I don't like, digital nomads, because we do get a ton of inspiration from traveling the world. But for us, career growth is at the top of the list of importance for us. So we get inspiration from traveling the world, but growing our business is still the top priority.
How do you decide where you want to go?
Well, co-founder, I typically, like, we kind of did this recently. We'll just look at a map and we'll say, "Hey, I've always wanted to go there. Let's go there." That's a lot of how we'll do it. So now we kind of narrowed down where we really love to be. So we're probably a little more specific, but yeah, it's typically just like, "Hey, let's look at a map of the world. Let's look at Airbnbs and see if we can find some inspiration there." For about half the year we do. So we'll be syncing up again in middle of April. We're gonna get back together for at least a few months. Before I have to come back to the States for a few weddings that I need to be back for.
Dude, don't say that to a Hawaiian. Back to the States. They'll get mad.
Thank you for saying that. So the reason why I said back to the States is because in April, I'm leaving the States. I'm going to Italy. That's why I said back to the States.
All right.
100%. Yes. Yes.
No, I said
actually
that once,
yeah.
and I've got friends from the Hawaiians, and they'll hop your butt, man. They hop my butt. I was like, yeah, good point.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for bringing that up. Because if any of my friends from Hawaii, because I've probably spent 3 or 4 months here every year. If they heard me say that, yes, they would not be happy. But unfortunately, I'm leaving Hawaii in about 2 weeks to go to the mainland for about a month, and then I'll be leaving the country. So that's why I said coming back to the States.
So do you find like a midterm rental? I mean, I don't think you want to do an Airbnb, do you? Or do they do like better rates for longer term?
Yeah, you can always, and I tell people this too. And if anyone ever wants this, we created something called, we create a lot of GPTs. If anyone's familiar with GPTs, it's like an app for the App Store, but for Chat GPT. One of the GPTs we created, because we do stay in a lot of long-term rents, 1 month to 3 months in locations. Oftentimes we'll find in an Airbnb, and we've saved ourselves tens of thousands of dollars in Airbnb rentals through using this like this negotiation method style, whatever you want to call it. And we built it into a Chat GPT. So if anyone ever wants that, just send me over an email. I'll send that to you. It's pretty cool. You just plug in a bunch of information like where you're staying, what you like about it, etc. We tell you what information we need, and then we'll tell you what to say to the Airbnb host. And then if you even input how they responded, we'll give you some things that you can respond back to as well. Because you should be able to save on the low end 10%, and on the high end 30 or more percent on your rentals, just by saying a couple of things. But always negotiate your rent on Airbnb, even if you're only staying for a week or so. You could save a ton of money from it.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing I feel like is pivoting. I mean, we've tried and we've used them over the years, and I don't know if it's maybe where we're staying. Like we go up to Big Bear in the mountains, and I mean, pain in the butt a lot of times, and especially with our big family and uh, the demands. Watch this video, learn about this. Here's how you operate the hot tub. Turn this off. Clean this place. I'm like, we're getting a hotel.
Right.
It's like cleaning fee, and a lot of times it's so misleading. Oh, whatever, $100 a night, whatever, and 3 nights total $575. You're like, shouldn't it be $300? This fee, that fee. Like, just tell me what the hell it's going to cost. So are you seeing that industry change?
1000%. Like with short terms, if I'm a week or less, I'm usually doing a hotel because of a lot of what you just mentioned there. And because Airbnbs, like with a lot of industries, when it starts to do well, like even email, per this conversation, opportunistic people join the market and they don't necessarily take the craft as seriously as maybe people used to take the craft. So that's one thing is luckily I've only had really two bad experiences with Airbnb, but that's also because I know pretty well how to vet these places, because whether it's
Yeah.
all of a sudden, $100 a night turns into $200 a night from all the extra fees on top of it, or they say it's going to look like this and then it really looks like that, or they say the location is here but it's really over here. There's been bad experiences through Airbnb too. So a lot of times for short-term stays, a week or less, I like to stay in hotels. They're easy, they're clean for the most part. Like you know what you're going to get with it. Where Airbnbs, it can be a little bit more of a variable, but for long-term stays, especially because I want to have my own workspace. My business partner wants his own workspace. I love him, but I don't want to share the same bathroom as him. Like I want to have a big enough place too, where like it feels like it's home, so that it doesn't feel like you're just living out of a suitcase fully.
Yeah. So in your EOC works, what are you doing? Are you coaching folks through this? Are you like holding their hand? Are you just doing it for them? Because you're mentioning the tools. You're mentioning instantly things like that. Or do you just have like enterprise type level accounts and you're just doing it for them? Or do I buy the domain, set them up, make you an admin? Do I buy my own instantly and then you're running it for me? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, great question. So there's two ways. Our bread and butter has always been people give us the keys, we just do it for them. So we do everything from the domain, creating the domains, the emails, warming up, getting lists, writing copies, sending emails, and booking a meeting on our customers' calendar. So that's our main way we work with our customers. All they need to do is show up to the meeting we book for them. However, back in now July of 2023, we created our DIY. We know everyone's not an ideal fit for us. Some companies are a little earlier stage. Some people just want to do it on their own. So we have a DIY where we show people how to do it on their own. So we set up the initial sending infrastructure because we've seen that piece is really most difficult. It's not like it's that hard, but it's that thing that just nobody wants to do and people end up just not doing it. So
Yep.
we set up the domains, the emails, we get them hooked into, that tool that tool we use instantly. We show them how to send the emails. We write the copy for them. And then we basically oversee them from there on out, and we coach them. We have a bunch of videos they have access to, live calls with us, etc. But the main way is we just do it for them, but we do have an option where we'll show people how they could do this on their own and help coach them through that process as well.
Yeah. Is there a minimum? Because it takes a while to set this up. It takes a while to warm up the emails. If you're doing the copywriting, I got to imagine it takes a minute to understand their value proposition, dial in the messaging. So, do they need to stick with you 60 or 90 days to start getting results?
Yeah, we just have month to month. So you can opt out if you wanted to right away. But of course, like with any marketing, I always tell people like budget in at least 3 to 6 months. If you're not going to budget that in, you're not really giving this medium a chance to fully work for you because results ramp up over time. Follow ups take time. Getting the health of your domains and inboxes take time. So I always recommend to people that are doing cold outreach, either with us or on their own, you got to give it at least 3 to 6 months to really give it a full chance of working for you. But no, for us, we believe in what we do. And if someone wants to leave us right away, they can. But luckily, that's very rare that that happens.
And so, how are you growing this business? Are you relying just on cold email, or are you starting to advertise and multimedia, multi-step kind of be everywhere approach?
I wouldn't say we're doing a be everywhere approach. We like to stick with what we're good at. Eventually, if you could do everything, that's great. But we're a small team. We got 9 people at this point working with us, so we like to be pretty focused on what works well. Over half of our customers have come from us just doing cold email on our own. We're starting to see good results though from LinkedIn outreach too. So that's been an interesting medium for us. We're testing out some cold calling with us. If it works well, we'll roll it out to our customers. So far, it hasn't been encouraging enough to do that. And then the other main way we get our customers is through referrals. So that's a nice piece of when you can get referrals, obviously that's always the best case. But in order to do that, you have to deliver for your customers. So cold email and cold LinkedIn is our primary way, but we do get a good amount of customers from referrals and even just from relationships in this space too, from people that we know, people that know us on LinkedIn that'll come to us.
How do you set the proper expectations with your customers? Because obviously, you don't want them to leave in a month, but a lot of people are impatient. I tell salespeople your number one job is to disqualify. You got to make sure they're not desperate or needy or pushy or have unrealistic expectations. That they have some staying power. That they can go at least 90 days because this is going to take a minute. How do you handle that?
Love it. Under promise, over deliver. Like that's a big thing that we try to do. And for me, because I'm really like the point person, I'm taking the sales calls to start. So I'm just trying to under promise and over deliver for them. That's my goal. And sometimes we've even seen too, the worse results you get in the beginning, sometimes the better the customer is. We've had some customers we had insanely good first, second, third months, and then they don't become a long-term customer versus our best customer to date. I say a best just because they've made the most money from us. They've been with us now for almost 2 years. Is they made over $1 million from our leads we got from them, and they're a small shop. They're a web development shop, but the first few months with them were terrible. It was a first month was super spammy, didn't go well, but I give their founders a ton of credit. They were patient, they believed in us, and now they're reaping the benefits of it. Even one of our newer customers, they've been with us at this point for probably 6 or 7 months. First month was not good at all. I don't even know if we got them a single meeting, but he was like, I believe in you guys. I'm trusting you in the process. And they closed, well, not they just 2 months ago, they closed their first $100,000 deal. They have another big deal that they should be closing soon now too. But their first 2 months really weren't good either. So it's about setting a realistic expectation and hopefully you can, run through the wall with it. But I just feel like a lot of people in my world and probably most worlds, they overpromise. They sell a big dream. They tell you they're going to get you 40 leads a day. It's like, that's a load of crap. You're not. To try to lock in that contract, to try to get someone into a 6-month, 12-month contract and they don't deliver on it, but hey, they already got paid. For us, we do month to month. We want to reduce friction. We try to under promise and we do our best to over deliver because if we could stay in that lane, we're going to have a lot of happy long-term customers.
Yeah, for sure. But people get desperate. They say stupid stuff. So, that's cool. I love your website. It's clean. Are you something I find appealing going at this for decades? People think, oh, inbound, organic, SEO, social media, and like it's free. Like nothing's free. The time it takes to create a post takes time and expertise. To engage in social media. I just saw a thing. It was a young girl who was just overwhelmed with being a content creator. She was like super successful, I think, on TikTok. And she's like, I'm burned out. Like I'm under this pressure the bigger I've gotten, it's like more people, like I'm on this schedule because you think, oh, it'd be great to be an influencer. Like, no, I don't. I leave the house 11:30, go to jujitsu, get back about 2. I don't want to be that much in demand. Now I just moved my website. I'm going through and I find an old post, how to do SEO in 2020. Like, well, shit, that's old. Nobody wants to read that. So you got to update stuff. So this direct approach, are you finding, like, does it give you this time to travel the world and live in Hawaii and go to Italy, and you find a formula that works, stick with it? You don't have to do all the ancillary stuff.
Yeah, the key is building out a good system so that it can work for you. In the beginning of it was a big headache. Like I was manually responding to every email. I was building every single template. I was following up. I was doing all that stuff, but you have to do that at first so that you can build
Sure.
the system so someone else can do it. Now, like I'm basically a customer in my own company. I get meetings booked on my calendar. I get the thread so I know what the context was. I see the person's LinkedIn, all that stuff. And then I just show up to the meeting. And then I can do what, I like to do. And then also I can focus on other parts of the business that are higher value, but you have to build the system first. And to your point, Wes, too, it's like not everybody wants to be on Instagram, holding their phone in front of them all day, trying to come up with new content. And also, is that the healthiest way to go through stuff? Like, sure, does it suck when every once in a while you get an email from somebody who tells you to F off from a cold email? Sure, that doesn't feel good. But look, if you're an influencer and you have a real following, you're going to get a ton of people that are just dragging you through the mud on social media. And I don't think that's the healthiest place to be. Like, I tend to find my best days, the days I spend the least amount of time on my social media. And if you're an influencer, a lot of times you have to. Like, I feel for athletes today. I feel for just celebrities in general today that have a big following, where yes, you have people that are telling you how amazing you are and you have all this, it's great, of course, to have a following in some ways, but it also kind of sucks when you have people that are saying some of the worst stuff in the world to you through social media. Like even when I did Facebook ads for one of my real estate developments, I had a guy tell me, because I would shoot a lot of videos of me like on the property. I had a guy comment like, I hope you get COVID and die on my Facebook post. And then I just started messaging with him and just, trying to be nice to the guy. And then finally he messaged me back after a couple of messages. He's like, hey man, look, I'm sorry. I was just having a bad day. You seem like a good guy. If you ever want to grab a beer, let me know. And, but like on social media, it's full of that crap. You go into any comment sections full of that. So, yes, we all want to be social media influencers, all in quotes, obviously not everyone does, but there's a dark side to that too. Just like any type of marketing, that ain't always pretty.
So in your outreach to me, it came from you, right? Versus, an assistant. Why do you choose that approach?
Well, first, if you have a good title, it tends to be better. Like if you're a CEO or founder, it tends to be better. If you have a good headshot, it tends to be better. We have an AI cold email newsletter, and part of the newsletter we talked about how actually if it comes from a woman, it tends to get a higher response rate. Like going into your question though, Wes, like why do I do it for me versus an assistant? We've just seen it gets better results. Like if it comes from you, Wes, it's going to have a more of a credibility than if it comes from your assistant, who's not going to be as well known as you are. So I always find it better to come from the person you're reaching out to. Like one of our best customers, they're a big unicorn startup. The outreach that it's coming from is their CMO, their chief marketing officer, who's a big time CMO. He doesn't mind his name being out there, and he's the point person that we send the emails from. We don't book the meetings for him, but we're sending it from him, and it gets a really good response because if you look this guy up, it's like, oh crap, this is a big time guy. He's very successful. He has a great pedigree. So some of our follow-ups will come from, our assistant. Some of my follow-ups will come from my assistant, and then we'll put his name in there. But the main outreach, I always think it's better to come from the point person.
So how did that work? So I'm looking at the emails you sent me, and they came from your primary domain. But I see in the small print underneath, there is an unsubscribe button. It was a blast email. How do you decide, when to use a burner domain versus a real one?
Yeah, great question. So that does come from my main email. Not my main email, but it comes from my main domain.
Right.
The reason we do that is because the domain is very healthy. That email is very healthy, and it's a very curated list. Like that was not a big mass blast list. It's highly curated and it gets a great response from it. So there's like no spam concerns, and it's a very, again, curated list. So I know I say do never cold email on your main domain. And I did do that when it comes to even reaching out to you, Wes. But again, it's a very curated list with very good response and very good positive response. So we have no worries of that being a spammy type of email. It's going to affect our main domain's health or even that domain's health. Sorry, that email's health.
Yeah. But you probably also saw all of my heart emojis, right, on all of my videos, so you knew I was like this little teddy bear that would accept your email.
Yeah, I knew next to Wes in the notes section, he's a big teddy bear, great guy. He's gonna love this email. So,
and just for our listeners, right? It's like you messaged me, and like I said, I hate email. I mean, I'm on it. I help people do it, but I miss emails, and you had to send a couple, and I was like, oh shit, man, I missed it. So it's like I wasn't ignoring you. I wasn't like, oh, here's another spammer. Oh, here's another another pitch. Yeah, I do get that, but I mean, it was from you. It was real, and I was just busy. So I mean, it took a few emails to get my attention. So what are you finding? Like, what's the norm? If somebody just sticks with cold email, is it 3 touches? Is it 7? Like, where are you seeing there's a sweet spot where people are getting back to them?
first, there's no perfect number. Like this
Yeah,
is
but
this
is there
is
an
not
average? Are you
hyper.
seeing a
Yeah,
blend?
yeah. So on average, because we track for every single meeting we've scheduled, we track how many. We have a big spreadsheet how many emails it takes. On average, it's about 3.5 emails to get one meeting booked. So that's the average. We'll typically do a 9-point sequence, so 1 email and 8 follow-up emails. We've had people on that 8th follow-up email turn into a customer. We've had people
Sure.
on that 8th follow-up email tell me to F off and I'm the worst person in the world. So like, again, you just don't, if you get one bad response, don't be thrown off. That person really just could have woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe their
Yeah.
husband just got mad at them. Their wife just got mad at them. Their kids are sick. Like you don't know what's going on. Just do your best to, if somebody responds, you don't keep reaching out to them. And also you send them something that can and should be relevant to them. Like Wes, if I reached out to you and was like, hey, my name is Adam and I'm a scientist and I'm looking at a cure for this virus. Do you want to chat or should I be on a podcast? You'd be like, hey, this is so irrelevant to me. What are you doing here? But I reached out to you because I knew you had a sales podcast and you had a good following. So I knew you had a good podcast. And I've been on a lot of podcasts similar to this one. Would you be interested in having me as a guest or having a conversation about me being a guest? So it needs to be relevant. Like some people get so lazy with it. And it's like, I know this is so irrelevant to me. That's what will annoy people. But typically, if it's relevant to that person and it's framed in a way where it's simple, it's clear, it's easy to understand, and there's an easy way to opt out, most people are more than forgiving on it. It's the rare, 1% of them that are going to come back and just want to take something out on somebody else.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do power people, right, C-level executives, do they want to attend a webinar, or do they want a 7-point checklist on this, that, and the other, or do they want a 15-minute Zoom meeting and just cut to the chase?
Yeah, exactly. Like some people are just trying to sell a white paper. Like for me, it's very simple. The way we structure our emails, and we created a GPT for people so they can rewrite their emails in our best email styles. But the same way, it's really simple. It's what's the purpose of the email? 1 sentence. What's the problem you solve? 1 sentence. What's your solution? About 1 sentence. What's your social proof? About 1 sentence. And then what's your call to action? Hey, do you have 15 minutes to chat about this? But a lot of times people I'll see will sell like reading this white paper or taking this extra step. And it's like, if you can't describe your value in a short, sweet email, then you got to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, I think people they overdo like everything. And people always, they're messaging me, hey, you want to hop on a Zoom call? No, I don't. Like, send me a summary. Hell, I get irritated. I had a guy last week, we're on Facebook. He's got a pitch and he sends me 2 voice memos. It took me 5 days to go open those voice memos. I could have read the text immediately. So it's like, oh, it's convenient for him to send the voice memo. It's not convenient for me to listen to it. So they overdo things, and I think most salespeople, business owners, whatever, they don't understand the value they bring. I think they keep the prospect too lofty, like an ivory tower, like they're this lowly servant below them. Please, just I know you're really busy. If you can just carve out a few minutes, like, do not say that, right? So, but decision makers, hard chargers can make big decisions fast,
Fast.
and usually they make them fast or not at all, and in the big scheme of things, like you mentioned, Mark Cuban or whatever, like for the average person listening to this, for them to make $1 million sale to Mark Cuban, that might be their biggest deal of their lives, but for Mark Cuban, it's a rounding error. It's like, should I buy the new 80-inch TV, for my living room? Maybe not, but he's not losing sleep over that. So, we got to understand who we're talking to and cut to the chase. So,
Yeah, detail. One of my
nice.
favorite things to talk about, because I feel like entrepreneurs do this and salespeople, those are probably the two worst people when it comes to this, is they just over talk, overshare, overdo everything. Where I always like to share, details create confusion, and a confused buyer is never a buyer. If you confuse someone, they're not going to buy, especially when it comes to the higher ups, the people that are the most busy. They'll give you a chance, but they're going to skim through it. Just like when someone skims through a resume, they're doing a quick skim, maybe giving it a few seconds. And then if they're interested, they'll keep looking. If not, they're moving on. So you got to get to the point. And also, to your point also about, like, people can make decisions. I hear so many salespeople and entrepreneurs probably especially, because most entrepreneurs I found, or at least a lot of the ones I work with, are great with product, great with ideas, not always great in the sales side. I think it's a big gap with the entrepreneur world, is not great with sales. And that's why I think people like US are so important, because if you don't sell, you got nothing. And one of the biggest gaps I see is sales cycles. People overestimate sales cycles so much. Like, my offering is not super expensive. The average deal size is right around $50,000 a year. It's the average deal size. So it's not huge, but it's also not tiny. Out of our cold email customers alone, just looking at those, because those are the opposite of warm leads. Most people see a meeting that comes from a cold email, that's a low quality lead. I've seen the opposite though. We've had, I think as of today, it's either 32 or 33. Forgive me for being off by 1 or 2 here. 32 or 33 cold email customers have just come from cold email outreach. Out of those alone, 12
32 or
of them
33 what?
bought within 24 hours. Customers from cold email outreach.
Oh, you've gotten that many
So
customers.
out of our customer base, which is over 60 full service customers, about 32 or 33 of them have come from cold email alone. On those,
Oh, I
12 of
got you. There was
those,
a
so about a
little
third,
chop there.
a little bit over a third.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. About over a third of them bought within 24 hours of that conversation, that first conversation.
Oh,
Bought,
wow.
either they paid the setup fee or signed the agreement. Well over half, I think it's 17 or 18 at this point, whatever the latest date is, bought within 1 week. And again, I don't have the biggest product. Like, it's not the largest ACV, but it's also not a baby either. So, a lot of these times with sales cycles, if you talk to the right person at the right time and they trust you, they don't want to wait. They don't want to talk to 30 other vendors. They don't want to keep sitting on this problem. If you have something in need, you talk to the right person at the right time, you make it easy for them to buy, you remove the friction. People can and should buy quickly. When I want like something, I'll buy quickly. If I don't feel like it's a need, I'll push it off to the side. But usually if I want to buy something, I'll buy it.
So, would you say out of these that bought quickly, were they already considering something like this, or they just see the value, or were other things kind of failing and they're like, all right, like, it's a low risk, right? It's affordable, month to month. Okay, let's get started. I mean, what's going on there?
It's a great question. I don't know the data to it. I just didn't do like a survey with them to ask them specifically that question. Now, if I were to guess, I would say
Right.
almost all, if not all, they had a big need. They maybe have tried a solution like this in the past. They already had the budget ready. So they were ready to buy, which again, not everybody's ready to buy. If I talk to 10 people and 1 or 2 of them fit that and are ready to buy, as long as you present them with a good solution, I'm signing for that all day long. You might have to go through 5 people that are just unqualified, 3 people that might be a fit in the future. And then there might be 1 or 2 out of 10 that are like, hey, if you could do this in the right way, if it fits their budget, if you make it easy for them, they build the trust, they're ready to buy right away. I would imagine that's where the people that bought for me, that bought quickly, if I would imagine checked off all those boxes. I'm not going to be naive and say, hey, I converted somebody who's a non-believer into a believer in a 30-minute call. I'm sure they were already a relative believer and then believed in what we offer. And that's why they were able to move fast. But so many of us have more of those conversations than we realize. Like I'll see some sales calls because some of our customers will record their sales meetings and send it to me. And sometimes my stomach will turn because I'm like, oh, dude,
Yes.
why are you asking this? Why are you bringing two people to your first call? You're the CEO. Like, why are you asking those questions? Why are you talking like that? I know how you talk in real life. And then all of a sudden, when you get in a sales call, kind of to your point, Wes, it's like you're talking like you're like talking to your mother or father when you're 7 years old. It's like, no, be
Yeah.
confident in who you are and just be who you are. Because if
Yeah.
you're trying to talk up to them like they're this God because they have the money and they're trying to buy your stuff, it's not going to work because they're also not going to trust you. And if you don't have
Mm-hmm.
trust, you don't have a sale, as everybody listening to this podcast already knows well and good.
Yeah. Well, and I got to imagine too, people that are booking these appointments, if it's the right list, they're not looky-loos. I mean, they're not just wanting a free education. You know, they're like, what the hell is this? And so it should be a qualified appointment, you know, person booking that call. So that makes sense. And what are your calls like? Are you going through a formal deck? Are you just showing the software dashboard? Or are you just answering their questions? I mean, is it a pretty quick call?
Yeah, it's quick and simple. And usually the meetings are typically scheduled. So found when calls go too long, they, for whatever reason, they don't tend to be the best buyers. But my call flow
Yeah.
is very simple. Like in the beginning, I just say, hey, basically, thanks for taking the time. Let's dive right into it. I'll share a little bit about myself. So I'll give maybe like a 60 to 90-second story about myself and the company and what we do. And they might have some questions or they'll share some more stuff. And then it's just a free flowing conversation. I know the certain things that I need to understand from that call to even know if they could be a good customer for us. But those are, 3 to 5 things that I don't need to pepper them like it's an interview. It just
Mm-hmm.
becomes a conversation. And because it's a conversation, they'll also often tell me things that maybe they wouldn't normally tell me if the situation was more of like, hey, I have these 10 questions I need to ask you before, we get into anything. I
Yeah.
always show the pricing on the call. I always do a quick run through of it. I don't show a deck. It's just a one pager with the pricing. I always want to talk about it on the first call because, hey, if it's too much, like why continue to waste time on it? And I'd rather go through the pricing together so that we can address any questions you have, address any concerns you have, go through it because people are going to forget a lot of the details anyway. So
Yeah.
I would rather address it head on. And that's typically the way I do it. I typically actually don't even follow up a ton after calls. So I'm not really trying not to chase people. Like I like to try to let buyers buy. And if you're that, great. If you're not that, that's okay. My pipeline, I'm always trying to do my best to make sure it's full.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can have some drip, maybe automate it, maybe,
For sure.
hey, how you doing?
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm the same way. It's like, it's either easy and obvious, and it's a hell yeah, or it's a hell no.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll
And
do it
how old are
direct.
you?
So
How do
for
you know
sure.
all this, man? How do you know all this? You're young.
I'm 32. I'll be 33 coming up soon. Um, I mean, I always tell people like I did a 1-year MBA, but it's only because they had me continue working for the school as I was running the entrepreneur program that I started. So I was paid to do my 1-year MBA at the college, and I never worked a real, quote unquote real job. I just started my first company, and it was the best PhD that I could ever buy. Like it was not a big money maker, as I shared a little bit earlier. It was me constantly banging my head against the wall. But I was blessed to have great investors. Our main investor in that company still works with us today. He's a great customer and has been amazing as a mentor. I'm blessed to have a great business partner, great investors in the past, great mentors working with me, and yeah, just great people around me. But I always say, like when I think back to some of the conversation I used to have, or when I was starting that first company as a 22-year-old bright-eyed, bushy-tailed entrepreneur, my stomach like turns at some of the stuff I used to say. Billionaire or
Mm.
bust and all that stuff. And I'm hoping at 35, my stomach will turn from something I said in this podcast today. So there's a lot to learn, and I'm excited for it.
Nah, man, you're doing things right. I'm 20 years ahead of you, and I can find no fault in what you're doing, man. So just do more of it.
Appreciate it, man. And people like
That's
you
badass.
genuinely are what inspire me, because there's not a lot of people like you that are doing what you're doing, and we're obviously not meeting in person here, but the ability to even communicate like this, and it came from a cold email. Like I've met some good friends have come from cold emails. in this digital world that we're in now, of course, it'd be best if we could be hanging out and, seeing each other face to face in person. But the fact that we can communicate here from two different parts of the world is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. Hell, man, I'm friends with some dudes. I mean, we met by punching each other in the face. I'm 20 years older, so we used to meet more in person and get
Yeah.
mad at each other.
There you go.
Now we just block each other on social media. We don't have to deal with them.
Exactly. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe getting punched in the face is a better way to learn, I think.
Hey, pain is real, right? People can talk about, what is a woman? Well, I don't know. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a whatever, but pain is real. If you're in pain, it's like, I need to fix whatever I'm doing is wrong, because that sure does hurt. So, it's a good teacher, but I digress.
Avoiding, I think today, too many of us, and sometimes, I'm unfortunately probably including this too, avoid pain. And it's the best learning we can have. Like I remember even I think it was my freshman year of high school. It was my freshman year of high school. I was playing basketball. I wasn't getting the playing time I wanted. And I was talking to my father about it. And he's like, go to the coach and don't say, I want more playing time. Say, what can I do to earn more playing time? What can I work on to deserve to play more? And how do we not avoid this and say, hey, my coach is a jerk because he won't play me or she won't play me? Or how do we say, oh, it's just not fair, or quit? It's like, no, if something isn't where you want it to be, whether it's your fitness, start eating better, work out more. If you're not where you want to be with your job, work harder, find mentors, do the little things. Like if you want to accomplish anything in life, it's going to take getting calluses and feeling pain. And I need to avoid it less too. So, but I need to do jujitsu because I probably need a little toughen up in that area too.
Jiu-jitsu is always the answer. A cold plunge is sometimes the answer. Running is sometimes the answer. Jiu-jitsu is always the answer. So I agree with that one, man. So, all right. So where do people go? EOCworks.com? Is that where you want to go?
Yeah, EOCworks.com is my website. Social media, I'm most active on Instagram and also LinkedIn, and just at Adam I. Rosen. And then my email, if anyone wants to email me directly, it's adam@eocworks.com. So if you do want our GPT prompt, whether it's you're going into an Airbnb and you want to negotiate some rent, if you want a GPT for our cold emailing, just shoot me over an email and I'll make sure that gets sent to you.
All right. So I'm adding that here to the notes. Very cool. Well, I'm going to the gym, but for you, it's only, what is it, noon there? 3 hours behind right now?
2 hours behind right now. So it's 1 p.m. my time.
2 hours. 1. Okay, cool. What's lunchtime, man? Well, Adam, thanks for spamming me. I mean, cold emailing me. I mean, being professional enough to do professional outreach, man. So it's been good catching up.
No, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you. I appreciate you and everything you do and for having me on here. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. It's been good. All right, dude. Have a good day.
Cool. Thanks, Wes. Talk soon.